Hi, how you doing? I'm Dan Antonelli, President and Chief Creative Officer at Kick Charge Creative. Today, we're going to be going step by step with some different criteria that we're going to use to judge whether or not Ponderosa Garage Doors is branded or blanded. First, we're going to just talk about the naming here. So Ponderosa Garage Doors and Repairs. You know, this evokes a visual, so I like that part. You may have heard me speak before where I talk about how good brand names evoke visuals which help people remember them later on. So I think it's got that going for it. The one part of it that I do not like is I do not like this piece of it. So where it says Ponderosa Garage Doors and Repair, it's inferred, it's already understood. So I know as a consumer, if you do garage doors, that you can not only repair them, you can provide me with a new one. So that word feels, well, those two words feel superfluous. So we're just gonna delete them on the redesign. So naming, I think the naming works pretty well. So I'm gonna say 7 for that. As far as whether or not the whole image is memorable. So this is where I think we could use some improvement. This is obviously predominantly that whole white van syndrome that we talk about because it's mainly white, but I did like the way that they did this piece down here with the green grass. So I still think it's memorable. It's just not as memorable as I think it could be. So I'm gonna give that a 4. And then brand colors here. So I don't love these brand colors, green and black. Not very unique, not very ownable, not very visually interesting or compelling. So I have that one scored as a 3. And then the logo and the lockup itself. So there's some issues with the way the logo and the lockup actually is designed. Obviously with the introduction of the words and repair, you can see that the clarifier here is running longer than the actual brand name. And typically the brand name is what is given the higher priority. So typically the brand name is going to be a lot larger than your clarifiers, and I don't really love the way that this lockup is running so wide here. And then kind of the generic clip art here, I think just doesn't make it very unique, very ownable. And then you have your tagline down here taking up almost the same amount of space actually as your clarifier. So logo lockup itself, you know, I think a 3 is about where I would put that. And then the vehicle wrap itself, again, I do like the aspect of how these trees were integrated on the bottom. I think that actually was a really good idea because it kind of reflects back to the name. So remember, we always talk about the idea of how important it is for the name itself to reflect or to implement a visual that can connect the viewer, right? So I do like the way that this piece was done. It's something that we actually look to integrate on the new design. And then here we've got the phone number, you know, definitely a little bit larger than we would like. And I hate the fact that our URL is buried so low down here. This is something you typically want to move up. I don't want to see that so low on the ground buried. It's actually more important than our phone number. So the vehicle wrap, you know, I'm going to give that a 3. We've got a total score at that point of 20, which kind of puts us, you know, maybe, you know, right around here, going obviously a little bit more towards blanded, right? So looking at the next one, and the redesign. So we're going to talk about a couple things that we did to try to address some of the issues that I talked about earlier. So naming itself, right? So what did we do? We got rid of the and repair part and we just shortened the whole brand name to just Ponderosa Garage Doors. That's all we really need to say. We don't need to say anything beyond that. We don't need words like sales, service, installation, things like that clutter up your design. So naming, I think we improved that to an 8, okay? As far as being more memorable now, looking at this as a unit, okay? What did we do to make the whole design more memorable? They do a lot of really, really high-end work, right? And that was the one thing that was really important for us to reflect back into the brand is how do we make this company look like they do premium work, okay? So I really love the way this all kind of looks. It's very memorable. Obviously the colors are very unique. So I have that as an 8 for that. And then the brand colors, again, my favorite piece of this design is how we have this unique set of colors. And you look at these colors, and certainly they don't look like colors that you've seen a lot before. So what does that do? That makes it more unique, it makes it more memorable, it makes it more sticky because these are colors uniquely identifiable to Ponderosa, not to a million other brands. So the brand colors I love, I have a 10 for that. The logo lockup, I think, is just more compact, more succinct. Everything is housed in a singular unit, which I think works really well. Very legible. You can easily read the words Ponderosa. And then we have our clarifier garage doors living below it. The one thing also to keep in mind too is we were very deliberate in figuring out how to design this lockup to fit this canvas. So you look at the space in which this logo lives on this actual canvas, right? So that whole space is filled with that brand and that messaging. So as you're thinking about designing logos for yourself, it's really important to remember the canvas in which that logo lives on and making sure you're designing it for that canvas. So don't design something that's too vertical that won't fill in the space properly. I love the way that we integrated some of these design elements on here as well. So I have that for a 10. And then the vehicle wrap itself. When we think back to the initial design that had all the trees on the bottom, we did think that there was some equity in that, meaning an element of the old brand that we wanted to bring into the new rebrand. So we do have the trees that live here. They're subtle. I'm not trying to hit you over the head. And why am I not trying to hit you over the head? Because it needs to sit in the background, not in the foreground. So when you bring things or too many things into the foreground, then the viewer can't discern the priority of what they should be looking at, okay? So really important to always be cognizant of the role that background elements play in your vehicle wrap design and the role that your foreground plays. So we kept the trees in the background here. The brand itself is coming forward. It's almost lifted off that canvas. And then the use of these striping elements, I think, are design elements that you'll see how we integrated on some of the other pieces of Collateral that we developed. We've got the tagline down here, taking service to a new height, to new heights, I said, and Ponderosa Garage Door URL over here. So I'm gonna say a 9 on the vehicle wrap, which gives us a total score of 45. And this is definitely, like I said, one of my favorites, because what I love about what this does is the promise and the visuals communicating the fact that this is a premium company, right? So you think about what judgments are being made as the vehicle is driving down the street or as the vehicle is parked on someone's driveway. If you're the neighbor and you see that vehicle, what do you think you're gonna get as a service, right? What kind of service do you think they're gonna provide? Are they gonna be the cheapest or are they gonna provide the best value? And then if you look at some of the things that we did for the brand itself, look at how the elements live on the Collateral that we actually pulled from the truck wrap design. So you have the striping elements here. You have the trees in the background that were from the actual truck wrap design. And you can see how everything looks like it belongs to the same company, right? So no matter what touch point the consumer is viewing, they know that this is a Ponderosa piece of marketing, okay? So this is their stationery. Again, you can see how all the design elements, we picked up the trees down here, integrated them on the envelopes, the business cards, all these things, again, really in sync, very much in harmony with one another. Here's their uniforms. And you could see, again, a membership agreement brochure, what that looks like. Again, thinking about trying to even sell more memberships, how important some of these sales collateral are to having the technicians be able to convert that homeowner to a membership plan. You could even just see some print ads that we did that have some coupons. Again, too, the other notion of even just site signs. So you imagine if this was just that white background site sign, green and black, I'm driving by, like, why am I looking at this? Why do I want to take a second look at it? I've seen 1,000 that look just like it, but this feels different to me because these colors are so unique and different. Even the way that the building is branded, we designed all this for them. So again, when people come to their showroom or the employees come, everything looks like it's in sync. I think this one is a great example of how important color truly is to building your brand. So when we picked these colors for them, we're very cognizant of who the competitors were and what color schemes were oversaturated in their market, and making sure we picked a palette that no one else in their market had. It's so unique, it looks so different, it looks so fresh, and all those things aid in the consumer remembering the brand when they need service later on. And that's really the most important thing, is how do we become sticky? How do the consumer remember our brand when they need service later on? Because not everyone needs garage service when they see that vehicle, but we want them to remember it later on when they do need service. Thanks for watching today. Link below if you want to see some of this collateral and other materials that we developed for the team at Ponderosa. And if you guys have any brands that you would like us to take a look at and want to have featured on here, we could certainly walk through and do a review on some of those. Okay? Peace out. Thanks for watching.